What is up, world? Mikey McNuggets here. It is right after 6 o'clock on Tuesday night, and we talked some Cavs in the show today, but we did not talk enough Cavs, and they are playing arguably the best basketball in the entire NBA now. So I wanted to hop on here for 10, 15 minutes real quick and explain a couple nuances that we didn't get a chance to touch on in the show about your Cleveland Cavaliers right now. So right now, they have won 8 games in a row. They are beating teams by an average of 20-plus points per game. They have found the fountain of youth and fountain of modern-day basketball, frankly, offensively, defensively. They have unlocked this new switch everything mantra and ability, which we had not seen previously due to some lineup changes. And JB Bickerstaff has, for as much as we've criticized him previously for lack of adjustments, well, he's made all the right adjustments in the last 15 games. Since losing Darius, Garland, and Evan Mobley on December 15th, the Cavs are 12-3, number 1 in the NBA in overall net rating, number 2 in defense, number 8 in offense. They're plus-minus per game, as I mentioned. They're beating teams not just handily, but convincingly, blowing teams out of the damn park, and it has been fun to watch. And a couple things that we touched upon real quick, we just want to hammer home again. They have found an entirely new offensive philosophy without Garland and without Mobley. Now, that's not to say they can't play that same style when those two come back, but they weren't really comfortable is the word I would use, going with this 4-out, 1-in offensive system when they had Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen together. We had seen those two play the majority of their minutes side by side, Mobley at the 4, Allen at the 5, and that limits what you can do, especially in a motion-based offense, because Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, neither, frankly, is a outside shooting threat at all. I mean, Mobley can hit a mid-range jumper here and there. The Cavs had hoped he'd turn into a three-point threat by this point of his career, but that has not been the case. And Jarrett Allen, who's playing out of his freaking mind right now, is a guy who's best served staying around the paint. He can make a jump shot. He actually made a couple against Milwaukee last week, kind of towards that in-between mid-range area. But we all know what Jarrett Allen does better than what he does poorly, and that's dunking the ball, offensive putbacks, a couple baby hooks and jump hooks here and there. But he's not an outside threat. So they've kind of lucked their way into this new 4-out, 1-in lineup by Evan Mobley not being available and forcing JB to make a tough decision. He could have inserted Tristan Thompson, who just got suspended for 25 games, into the starting lineup and stayed with the two bigs. He could have put Damian James in there. Instead, he decided to downsize a bit and go with Dean Wade at the 4. And Dean Wade, who does not get nearly enough credit for his efforts defensively. He actually is. I'm not saying he's great, but he's above league average when it comes to defending perimeter wings. He's 6'9", moves his feet pretty well. He's more of a smart defender than an instinctual defender. And that fits right in with Jarrett Allen, who is a above average rim protector. So they slide Dean Wade in there. That's another shooter. Okay. Well, you have Max Strus. You have Donovan Mitchell. And now you have an empty spot because it's not Darius Garland. So what do? Well, they've kind of mixed and matched the starting lineup. LeVert started, but the key improvement has been Sam Merrill becoming the second coming of Seth Curry. Not Steph. He's not Steph yet, but Seth Curry. In the last 15 games, no player has made more threes off the bench than Sam Merrill. He has won more than Alec Burks of Detroit. And here's the crazy part. He's played 97 fewer minutes. He has one more three than Alec Burks. Those are 1 and 2 in bench player three-point attempts made since December 15th when Mobley and Garland went down. He's played 100 fewer minutes. He's shooting 9 threes a game in January. He's making 4.5 of them. He's shooting 42% from threes, a freaking catch-and-shoot sniper. And he's not just a shooter, and that's the best part about Sam Merrill. Guys, he moves without the ball. And the one thing that I think this Cavs renaissance in the last 3 weeks has shown us is the Cavs are at their best, not necessarily 4-out, 1-in. Yeah, that helps, but when they play fewer and fewer ISO possessions. And that's not a knock on Donovan, who's a great ISO player. That's not a knock on Darius Garland, who's a great ISO player. It's not a knock on Caris LeVert, who's a great ISO player. What it proves, in my opinion, is that it's really hard, and especially in the regular season when teams don't want to play defense, to guard for a 24-second possession, make rotations, and even more difficult, make the secondary rotation when the Cavs are giving up good passes to get great looks, or they're giving up good looks to get great looks. They're making the extra pass time after time after time. John Fanta came on the show a couple weeks ago and said since Evan Mobley had gone down, Jarrett Allen, according to Second Spectrum Sports, was getting 40 more touches per game than he had when Mobley was still involved in the lineup. So that's more passes. It makes sense. He's getting a lot of the touches Mobley would get. But since the Cavs have been without two of their starters, they're passing the ball 17% more per game than they had previously. 17% doesn't sound a lot. That's a ton. It's a crazy amount. I don't have every team's numbers. I only subscribe to the Cavs page on that, but I'd be hard-pressed to imagine any team over a course of 15 games has seen the number of total passes they've made go up 17%. What does that do? Makes the defense scramble, makes them rotate, makes them late on collapses, leaves guys open for shots. How many times in the last 3 weeks have you seen Sam Merrill, George Niang, Max Strus have a wide open three-pointer? And how many times did you see that when Evan Mobley and Darius Garland were in the lineup? Once again, not knocks on Garland and Mobley, just this new offensive philosophy the Cavs have kind of found a way to adapt and adopt, which has helped them unlock what has become the most lethal offense in basketball since December 15th. Max Strus, George Niang, Sam Merrill, Donovan Mitchell. Those guys can all shoot. Dean Wade, not the greatest shooter in the world, but a guy you can't leave wide open. Isaac Okoro is making threes at the clip that he didn't necessarily make last year. And it's the same numbers, but he's more confident with it. It is refreshing to see them play a style of basketball that is in line with the rest of the best teams in the NBA. You look at even Milwaukee, who fired their coach today, by the way. And Milwaukee plays Cleveland tomorrow and on Friday. It's a day off, but essentially a 2-game series. And it's going to be interesting. They have Joe Prunty. The kind of straw that broke the camel's back was Cleveland beating them by 40 last week, essentially, without Giannis. And we'll see. And that whole situation is different. But you look at the Bucks. They can play Brook Lopez and Giannis together because Brook Lopez shoots threes. You look at the other bigs in the league. You could play a big with Jokic because Jokic shoots threes. You could play even a big with Embiid to an extent because Embiid isn't stuck in the paint. When you have two bigs that can't shoot, there's just so little room for the guards who are as crafty as they are with Garland and Mitchell and those guys that they just don't have a ton of room to operate. I say all of that, and I'll talk about defense in a sec, with one hesitation, which is in the postseason, some of these guys who the opponents are capable and willing to leave wide open, they'll have to make shots in the playoffs, which we saw last year is a lot easier said than done. Defensively, it's crazy to think this team would be better without Evan Mobley, and I'm not even suggesting they are. I'm just saying since December 15th, they have the second highest defensive net rating in basketball, which is a giant step up from where they were when they had Evan Mobley. So you could ask, why is that? Well, part of the reason is when you start Allen and Mobley, most teams don't have two traditional bigs in the sense the Cavs do. So you have Mobley guarding someone on the perimeter, which he's more than capable of doing. He finished second in Defensive Player of the Year voting for a reason last year, but that's not his strength. His strength offensively and defensively is not back to the basket, but in the restricted area in the paint, 15 feet and in. Without Mobley, you're able to kind of finagle the lineup to where you have Isaac Okoro, who, once again, I cannot say enough. He's not great. Probably never will be a great player, but he fits all the he checks all the boxes you want from a role player in 2023. If you leave him wide open, he can knock a three, and he can guard 1 through 5. On Wednesday, he was the primary defender against Dame Lillard for the Bucks, held him to 17 points. Last night against Orlando, he was the primary defender on Paolo Banchero, held him with 6 points under his season average. There aren't a lot of guys in the NBA who on one night are guarding a shoot-first point guard, and on the next night, or I guess 4 nights later in this case, guarding a shoot-first center. Think about that. A point guard and a center, 6'2", 6'10", and then he got Isaac Okoro guarding both of them. And his defensive versatility has allowed the Cavs to fit lineups that adjust and match up with their opponent much better than when you had Mobley, who you have to play because he's Evan Mobley. He's the 3rd overall pick from a few years ago. He's trying to play for that rookie max deal. It just allows you to kind of mix and match your lineups to better fit the opponent. And kudos to JB Bickerstaff, who we have time after time after time criticized and said he doesn't make adjustments and his rotations are wonky, and all that had been valid and fair. And I also think it's valid and fair to say now, JB Bickerstaff has rolled with the punches as well as you could possibly ask for, losing 2 of your 4 best players, maybe 2 of your 3 best players, depending on how you look at Mobley versus Allen, and finding a way to get the most out of this team. Now, I'm not saying he's smooth sailing the rest of the season. I still think, as Bull said today, he has to prove it in the postseason before I think any of us will truly feel comfortable as him being the long-term coach of this team. But credit where credit's due. He's found a way to get the best out of Jared Allen. He's found a way to allow Donovan Mitchell to flourish being a point guard without a traditional point guard on the court. He's found a way, and you could say this player's not coaching, but it's always a mix of the two. He's found a way to trust Sam Merrill and allowed Sam Merrill to develop into, I think, my favorite player in the NBA right now. And you look at Craig Porter Jr., guys like that who weren't expected to contribute this season have been kind of thrust into the limelight, and they don't look scared. They look like they belong. And part of that is because of the coaching staff, whether it's Bickerstaff, the position coaches, the G League guys. It's all one staff, guys, having them ready to step in and contribute at the highest level. What the Cavs have done since December 15th, they are 12-3. They're playing a completely different style of offensive basketball and defensive basketball. It's been a metamorphosis over the last 15 games from the Cavs we saw where it was panic button was sitting on the table and we were getting ready to smash that thing home to where they are now, which is the hottest team in basketball. Donovan Mitchell gets credit. The coaching staff gets credit. Jared Allen is playing out of his freaking mind. 12 straight double-doubles. It almost seems like he never misses, by the way. I know he doesn't shoot a lot, and all his shots are really putbacks or follow-ups and alley-oops, but the dude never seems to miss. He's shooting, 63% in the last 15 games. He's been awesome. The whole Tristan Thompson situation is, I don't want to laugh at it, but it's like something seems so weird because Tristan Thompson was not this player last year. All of a sudden, he found the fountain of youth, and maybe he had some extra help. Who knows? But he'll be back. And then you got to give credit to the bench guys, man. It is not easy to step into a role that you're not accustomed to and fulfill it the way guys like Sam Merrill and Craig Porter Jr. have, and even George Niang to an extent, and even Dean Wade and Okoro and Max Strus. Strus was brought here to be the sharpshooter. His shot's been a bit inconsistent. He started out red hot. He slowed down. He's still shooting 34% from three. But there were stretches of this season where the Cavs were asking him to be a secondary creator. And that's when the Cavs are really struggling because Max Strus, for as good as he is at what he does, he's not a creator. He never has been. He wasn't in Miami. He's not going to be here. And wherever he goes next in 3 years, if he doesn't resign, he's not going to be a creator. He's a guy who scores off other creators. And he wasn't capable of being a secondary creator when Darius initially went out. However, when he's the guy who's catching wide open looks from Donovan Mitchell, who, by the way, had 13 assists last night, he has taken this point guard role by storm and has made a conscious effort to get other guys involved. He's as deadly as they come. And Sam Merrill doesn't miss. And I tweeted this out earlier today. Guys, if you want to see, I can't play it in here because Restream and Tagboard don't talk perfectly, but I tweeted it out. I clipped all of Sam Merrill's first half threes from yesterday. They're running a pick and roll now with Sam Merrill and Donovan Mitchell, which I think is my favorite single play I've seen the Cavs run in this JB current roster iteration. It puts the defense in an absolute torture chamber, trying to figure out how the hell they're going to stay with Sam Merrill, who's going to pick and pop off a back screen. Yesterday was Tristan Thompson in the particular play I'm talking about. Do you stay with Donovan? Do you hedge? Do you go over? Do you go under? Do you go under? He shoots, you go over. He's going to take you to the lane, and then he's going to have the help side defender from the, if we're looking at that way, from the strong side come over. You have an open shooter in the corner. And Cole Anthony yesterday did a really good job. The Magic tried to do a really good job. I should say tried to do a really good job of making it a difficult decision for Donovan Mitchell. He stunted, and he took a half step in the wrong direction. I'm telling you, a half step, and Cole Anthony's an elite athlete. Donovan Mitchell goes behind the back to Sam Merrill, catches it in less than half a second. The shot's up, bottom of the net. It's a thing of beauty. It's little nuances like that that have allowed the Cavs to become the best team in basketball today. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win the championship, but I'm saying right now there's not a team in basketball playing better than the Cleveland Cavaliers. And frankly, I don't want to hear about the soft schedule, we've beaten nobody. While that is a fact, the Cavs can't control that. And it's not just beating teams. If they were squeaking by teams, an 8-game win streak, and you're winning each game by 3-4 points, then okay, I'm not buying it. But when you're beating teams by 20, 30, 40 points, you're never trailing. They've led for 84%. Chris Fedor said it this morning on in his column. They've led for, I think, 84% of the time of this 8-game win streak. Don't quote me on that. Chris had it in his column. Chris does a great job covering the Cavs, by the way. But it's just been fascinating to see the evolution and transformation of this team. And everything we talk about now The caveat is, what's it going to look like when Darius and Evan Mobley come back? Will they stay to this? Will they stay with this 4 out, 1 in? If they do, how does Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, how does that pairing coexist? Can Darius Garland, and he's more than capable of, but the question is, can Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell play with this pass-first mentality that has been so exceptionally positive for the team over the last month and a half now, I guess? Can they both play the same way when they're on the court together? Will one of them decide, hey, Darius, you haven't played in 5 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is, I got to get my shots? Well, that may not be the best thing for the long-term success of the Cleveland Cavaliers. It has been, 8 years now, 7 years now since the Cavs won the title. LeBron left, obviously. There were some down years. Last year, we had all this excitement and momentum, and we thought things were going to go differently in the playoffs, and the New York Knicks come in and beat the living crap out of the Cavs. And it was disappointing on all fronts. And the team didn't have the roster and the coach at the time to beat Tom Thibodeau and the Knicks. It's too early to predict playoff matchups. We're only halfway through the season. It's too early to predict exactly what the rotation will be, but I can tell you, whenever the playoffs do roll around, the Cavs won't play 10, 11 guys like they currently are. They'll shrink their rotation to 7 or 8, just like every coach does in the postseason. And it'll be fascinating to see who kind of makes that cut. Can they play Sam Merrill in the postseason? Or will the Knicks or the Celtics or whoever they're playing call him out and essentially isolate him every possession, make him play defense? And if you do, what's the trade-off between Sam Merrill's offense and his defense or lack thereof, which, by the way, is not even a bad defender, but Jalen Brunson and the guys that will be essentially picking him off one-on-one are elite offensive players. Sam Merrill's not a bad defender, but he's certainly not an elite defender. I guess I want to end with this. I just wanted to come on. We didn't talk about it enough on the show today, and everyone was asking. I just wanted to get a couple thoughts out. If you haven't been watching the Cavs of late, I highly encourage you to watch tomorrow night. I know Bally's sucks. I hate you, Bally's. You're the worst app I've ever had to deal with. You freeze all the time. You make it so difficult to watch local sports in Cleveland. Be better. But there's also illegal streaming. And I'm not suggesting you illegally stream the game. I'm just saying that's an alternate option if you choose not to use or pay Bally's. If you haven't watched the Cavs yet, I highly, 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 highly recommend you tune in either tomorrow night or Friday night when they take on the Milwaukee Bucks. That'll be a bit of a proving ground, a bit of a real test, measuring stick test to see where the Cavaliers are at this point, whether or not what they're doing is sustainable. And most importantly, we know it works against the bad teams. Does it work against the best teams in the East? And eventually the best teams in the NBA? And that we don't truly have an answer to yet. My answer is I think it can. Obviously, they're going to struggle to defend Giannis with Dean Wade. Like that's a tough matchup for Dean Wade. But the trade-off offensively of having Dean Wade out there versus Evan Mobley, who's much more physically suited to defend Giannis Antetokounmpo, is a trade-off I think that right now is worth taking. The NBA is such a, you guys know I got some friends who coach in the league, and at the end of the day, whether the team he coaches for wins or loses, and they lose a lot more than they win at the moment, he goes, we just didn't make shots. And it's in the regular season, a lot of it boils down to which team makes more shots. And I know that sounds so basic and simple, but it's true. You shoot 43s a game. If one team gets hot and makes 18 out of 43s, it's a damn good chance they're going to upset any team in the league, right? So it comes down to, are they going to make shots? And right now the Cavs, as a team, are shooting at an unbelievably high rate. The more shooters you have on the court, the more decision makers you have on the court, and the more guys who can put pressure on the defense to react and adapt to what you're doing makes it infinitely more hard and difficult to defend. And I think my biggest issue with the Cavs at the end of last season and what we saw at the beginning of this season is you had Darius and Donovan, and that was it. Those were the only guys on the court who were able to create offense for the others. This season and this current iteration, you have Donovan. You have Karras. You have a guy like Sam Merrill and Max Strus who may not be creators by themselves, but you can't ignore. Same goes for Dean Wade. Same goes for George Niang. All those guys can't be ignored. And even Okoro, he has to make shots. He'll be ignored in the postseason right now. He has to make shots before teams respect him. But you have guys, and you'll never be on the court with only two creators. That's the beauty of this 4-out, 1-in system right now that the Cavs have with the current players they have in uniform. And in theory, that should get better with Darius Garland coming back. You need more than two guys because it's easy to take out two guys. It's very difficult to defend 5 when you can't help. You need more than two, and that'll be the biggest question for the Cavs as they continue this push towards the second half of the regular season into the postseason, and we'll see what happens from there. But the biggest difference right now with the Cavs from the last month, since December 15th, on this 12-3 streak since before, is they're hard as hell to defend. And before, they were pretty damn predictable. And as good as Donovan is, as good as Darius is, and as good as those two are together, and the numbers, despite what the eye test says, where you maybe like those two don't play great together, the numbers say the Cavs are at their best when those two are on the court, and the metrics between them, especially the advanced analytics, say it's one of the better backcourt pairings in basketball. The predictability of what they wanted to do when those two were on the court together, surrounded by at least two non-shooters, it's easy to guard. I can't. I'll put my glass on to read the chat in a sec, but I bet you 4 out of the 5 people in the chat, if I asked, what were they going to do with Darius and Donovan on the court alongside Mobley and Allen? We all knew what they're going to do. It was predictable, and now it's not. And when you're unpredictable, you're more difficult to guard. You're more difficult to prepare for, and it gives different guys an opportunity to get hot. And I think that's the biggest difference more than anything else from the last 15 games for the Cavs to the first 25 games of the season for the Cavs, is they are completely unpredictable on offense. They chuck up a ton of threes. They're shooting at an extremely high percentage, and Donovan Mitchell is taking over the point guard role in a way that I did not think was possible, and he's flourished beyond my wildest belief in that situation. And maybe even more impressively than that is what Jared Allen has done at center, a double-double machine, setting the new Cavs team record with 12. He's playing like Joel Embiid's going to be the all-star starter at center in the Eastern Conference, and Bam Adebayo will probably be the second center on the all-star team. But it's getting close to where we have to have a real conversation of whether or not Jared Allen will be the Cavs' second all-star this season. I'm going to read a couple comments here before I wrap up. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Oh, there's way more than I thought. Let's see what I can get. B Skills said, you guys got these fooled out here putting out videos about Donovan Mitchell getting traded to the Lakers. Dave McMenamin put out that report today. We may have to talk about it tomorrow just because if it's out there, we do kind of have to talk about it. And I think it's silly. You're this much invested in Donovan. If you're going to move off of Donovan, that's an off-season move. I can't imagine it would happen mid-season at this point. Even if he says, I don't want to sign here long-term, well, you got a damn good team. You don't give him up in the middle of the season. I would be shocked. And frankly, the Lakers have nothing that would offer the Cavs or nothing that would interest the Cavs. So that feels like a complete and utter pile of rubble. Sam Merrill got a pistol. Yeah, he's phenomenal. Phenomenal. Dub Deuce says we could have used Tristan against the Bucks. Yeah, that one hurts. The timing of that obviously hurts, but he's their third big. At the end of the day, Tristan Thompson is there for moral support more than anything else. So the Cavs can't overcome the loss of Tristan Thompson, and they have much bigger issues to fry down the road. What else? Dub says, I think Allen's a solid 2 behind Mitchell. They should feed him more once the guys get back. You would think, but it's also difficult when there's so many guys that want shots. And Allen, the best part about Allen is he doesn't really need the ball to score his points. Like Allen, I think, is one of the rare bigs in today's NBA that is content with getting touches off of offensive rebounds and putbacks as opposed to running the offense through him. And I think that's clutch, especially when you have guys on the perimeter who want to shoot and deserve the ball and deserve those shots with the frequency they're getting them, like a Sam Merrill right now, who's absolutely on fire. Dion says, when our big four is back together, need to play a 3-2 zone with our bigs defensively to protect the rim. Zone in the NBA is a nice little change of pace, but I am very hesitant to play zone on a consistent basis. These guys can shoot the ball so well and from so deep that it stretches the zone out. Why it works in college with Syracuse is college kids can't shoot point blank period. Like you watch a college game, watch an NBA game, the caliber of shot making is night and day. So I don't think that's a long-term solution, but they do have the length between Mobley, Allen, and whoever they're putting at the wings to at least try and create some havoc, but I'm not quite sure that's in the cards long-term. Signed JaMychal Green or Taj Gibson to replace Tristan Thompson. I think Taj Gibson's back on the Knicks, to be honest with you. I'm not 100% sure. JaMychal Green, I think they'll be fine for 25 games. It's the regular season. It's okay. But if he was gone for the playoffs, I'd be a little more concerned. I'm not too worried. They signed Damian James. He'll be the backup big in this stretch. Creative Juices, haven't watched a second of the Cavs, but have we beaten anyone good during the streak? I mean, elite teams? Not yet. No, they haven't, but they'll have a chance to tomorrow when they take on the Milwaukee Bucks in Milwaukee. Skinner says the East got the Celtics and maybe Pacers, Miami. I also would say Philadelphia is in there. Embiid is a matchup nightmare. Tyrese Maxey's playing phenomenal. And the 76ers have a ton of capital, to move if they want to make an upgrade at the deadline. I think they're a team that's going to be aggressive. Cavs are right in that conversation. I totally agree. Evan419 said the Bucks are going to be pumped to play with a new coach. Joe Prunty, the assistant, is now their interim head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. Doc Rivers is a name to watch for Milwaukee. I would be shocked if he's not the head coach in the next 36 hours, which would make things a lot more difficult for the Cleveland Cavaliers because Doc, say what you want about him, chokes in the playoffs, but has been a pretty damn good and successful head coach for the majority of his career. Jaron says, time to bundle 3 or 4 of these guys and go get an actual wing. 40% on 3-point volume. Here's the thing. Those guys don't grow on trees, and the ones who are available usually cost a lot. But I think the premise of what you're saying, Jaron, is 100% right. The Cavs, as I mentioned, they're playing 11 guys now, and maybe even more if you count Tristan Thompson. That's just not sustainable in the postseason because your roster and your rotation, is so much more limited and strict. And the Cavs do have a couple guys that have overlapping skill sets. If you could, and I'd have to do some research. I'm not sure who'd be available, who's out there, but if you could bundle 2 or 3 of these guys in exchange for an upgrade for one, that's something I would not be shocked to see Kobe Altman do. B Skrill says, how are they going to fire this man? They were 30-13 second place. If you read the tea leaves, I have no inside information on this, but the players didn't like him and Giannis was out. So if Giannis says, I don't want you, the Haslams made the move. They can pay anyone they want. We know how the Haslams money works, and they are the part-time owners of the Bucks. So Giannis was unhappy, and if Giannis was unhappy, that's at the end of the day all that matters. So he is off. Evan said someone told McMenamin to put it out there. Good try, LeBron. What's funny is there's a very, 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 very good chance that's exactly what happened, Evan, because we all know McMenamin, Jason Lloyd, Joe Varden were all LeBron's guys. Now McMenamin's in LA with LeBron, so there's a good chance that's actually what happened. Evan said we need Mikey McNuggets on the court to beat the zone. Yeah, NBA 3 is deep, man. It's crazy how much deeper an NBA 3 is than a college 3, but these dudes in the NBA, they don't miss. It's absurd. Like, I think I've told this story, but the NBA teams used to practice at Emerson College where I played at before they played the Celtics because it was an underground gym. Media couldn't get there. And guys like Dwight Howard would go like 60 for 75 from 3 just shooting around. It's just like, how? Like you're not even allowed to shoot in a real game and you're shooting 75% uncontested. It is silly. Will Grayson says Darius package to LA gives us Hachimura and some change. Not a chance. Darius Garland is worth way more than that. Also, the Lakers would have to trade way more than that to get Darius Garland. And money-wise, I don't know. You take D'Angelo Russell back. Like, Darius Garland ain't going anywhere. Not going anywhere. Let's see. Last one. B Skrill says, why is Ken Carmen making a big deal over the Cavs not beating any good teams? I don't know. I haven't heard him say that. So, yeah, I don't know. They haven't beaten any good teams. Like, he's not wrong. But I also think there's something to be said about not just winning, beating the living dog crap out of the teams they have. So, we'll see tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, Giannis is back. They're playing Milwaukee in Milwaukee. First game for Joe Prunty. So, you know the Milwaukee Bucks will be up and excited to play for a new coach. We'll see what the Cavs do. I don't think it's a nationally I'm looking it up. I don't think it's a nationally televised game. Let's see what the NBA schedule is. Is it nationally televised? No, it's just on NBA TV and locally streamed on Bally. So find a way to watch it. I highly encourage it. But I just say this. We'll end with this. the Cavs are playing awesome basketball right now. They're a blast to watch, and they're having fun. And watching a team that's having fun is always enjoyable from the fan perspective. So, yeah, we could argue and say they haven't beaten anybody, but the reality is they've won 8 games in a row. They're playing as good a basketball, if not better, than any other team in the NBA. And whatever they're doing, whoever they're playing, it hasn't mattered since December 15th. This team is 12-3 since they've lost 2 of their top 3 players, 2 of their top 4, whatever you want to argue semantics. And what they are doing, at least on paper, should translate to success, not only for the rest of the season, but into the postseason. There are still questions to be answered. Do not get me wrong. There are still 2 massive questions to answer. Can Darius and Donovan still completely coexist to the caliber we want? And can they play Mobley and Allen together? Those are 2 gigantic questions that have to be answered before we know what this Cavs team truly is or isn't. But right now, those 2 guys aren't in the picture. And until those 2 guys come back, let's enjoy this 4-and-1-out style of basketball. Let's enjoy this modern offense that's chucking and making a ton of threes each night. Let's enjoy this team that is passing the ball more than any other team in the NBA since those 2 guys went down. Let's enjoy Sam Merrill being the number 1 bench shooter in the NBA since December 15th with 53 made three-pointers. Let's enjoy Donovan Mitchell's renaissance as a point guard, 13 assists. And most importantly, let's enjoy some winning basketball. That's it for right now. I'll see y'all tomorrow on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Appreciate y'all tuning in. McNuggets out.